Hello and welcome to Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. I'm Becky Parker Geist and I'm your host. Audiobook Connection is your place to learn about the audiobook creative process and for authors to learn valuable tips on producing and marketing your audiobooks. This podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Welcome back to Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. I'm your host, Becky Parker Geist, and today we're going to dive into what I think of as kind of one of the most exciting and also sometimes the most overwhelming parts of being an audiobook narrator, and that is how to use social media and integrated marketing to promote your audiobook sales. So if you're feeling like you've poured your heart, your soul, your resources into creating your audiobook, you may now be asking, okay, but how do I get it into the listener's ears, right? This episode is for you. So I'm going to walk you through some proven strategies, some tools, some practical tips and steps that you can take to make sure that your audiobook stands out in what is, without question, a crowded digital landscape. So we'll cover social media best practices, how to weave your audiobook into an overall integrated marketing plan, and then also some ways to connect authentically with your audience so that they not only want to buy your audiobook, they want to recommend your work to others. And that is key. We've talked before about the importance of word of mouth marketing and how that is, in fact, the most powerful marketing that can work in your favor. So let's start off with why marketing your audiobook matters. Let's start with the obvious, but what we wish was not the truth, and that is that an audiobook doesn't just sell itself. We may wish that it would, but it doesn't. And so no matter how brilliant your writing is, no matter how magnificent the narration is, it can get lost if listeners don't know it exists. And so that is what marketing is all about. It's about how you bridge that gap between creation and consumption, right? Between the production and the sales. And so social media, whether we love it or whether we hate it, hopefully we don't hate it, but it is one of the most powerful tools we have for visibility. And that is a good way to really think about it in terms of that building the connections, building your community, and making your audiobook more visible out there in a bigger world. All right. So think of it this way. Your audiobook it's a product, right? But it is much more than that. It is an audio asset, which is great for marketing. And even more importantly, it is, and you are a brand, right? When you approach your marketing from that perspective, you start to realize that it's not about like shouting out into the void, buy my audiobook, because that won't really work for one thing. And it can just be frustrating, right? But instead, it's all about telling a story that people really want to be part of. You're good at telling stories. You've written a book. So this is something that should be fun for you. And marketing can be fun if you let it be and just sort of open your mind and heart to that possibility and think about it in a slightly different way if marketing is something that you tend to dread. Okay, so let's start off talking a little bit more about building your author brand online. There's a foundation that has to be laid. So your author brand is really, it's what people feel when they see your posts. It's the cover art that you have. It's your website. It's even the way that you interact in comments. So I want you to ask yourself 3 key questions. So the first is, what do I want listeners to associate with me, with you as the author, right? what do I want listeners to associate with me? So, like, do you want when they think about you or associate with you, like, oh, it's adventure, or is it like, oh, really scary, creepy horror stuff, that just gives you the chills? Or is it, cozy comfort? Is it the warmth of a children's story? Is it thought provoking nonfiction? What are those associations that you want your listeners to make with you specifically? And this next question is, who is my ideal audience? And we talk about this a lot. Who is your ideal audience? This is very much a part of like, who are those people that want that association with you, right? But as specific as you can be, it's helpful. The more specific you can be, the more helpful you're knowing what your target market actually is. The idea of my book is for everyone is a young idea in terms of like marketing expertise and experience. It's one of the first things that we may think, but really when we dive in deeper and we get further into sort of down the road of experience, we realize that actually if we're more targeted, more specific, then we can actually be much more effective and realistic. So these might be things like, is there an age group that your book particularly appeals to and is targeted to? Are there specific interests, their lifestyle that your target market is attracted to or living, right? And potentially even like their favorite social media platforms. This can also be really helpful to understand. So explore that as far as you can and just always be paying attention so that you can learn more as you move forward. The third question to ask yourself is, how do I want to show up? Right? Think about, again, that relationship. Are you going to be the witty entertainer, the trusted expert, the warm friend? How do you want to show up in this relationship with your online community? So once you clarify for yourself what that brand voice is, then everything that you post, no matter where you're posting it, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, wherever you're going to be, those posts should align with the voice that your brand voice. So consistency is how you build that association, how you build what people think of when they see your name or hear your name, when they see your posts. What is that feeling? So the consistency of your brand voice is how you build that recognition and the relationship over time. Now, when we're thinking about which are the right social media platforms for you, so one of the biggest mistakes authors make, and I hear this from many marketing professionals, that one of the biggest mistakes is authors are trying to be everywhere. And you don't need to be everywhere. And you're not going to be able to master every single platform. It's just too much. There won't be time for anything else, like enjoying life, right? Writing your next book. Okay. You just need to be where your audience is already hanging out, where they're spending time. So you can do further research on this, but here are some sort of general guidelines on where your audience for your genre might be hanging out. Some places to explore. So one is on TikTok or Book Talk. Book Talk is part of TikTok. It's a very, very large community on TikTok. But some of the genres where authors and communities for those genres are hanging out, young adult or YA, romance, fantasy, thrillers, and sometimes like short, creative, like visually engaging videos. This is the place where that kind of content is like very, very active. That's where you're going to thrive if that's the kind of content that feels right for you and your audience, right? On Instagram, we have a lot of, there's more like lifestyle, romance, also behind the scenes kind of glimpses. So on Instagram, using reels and carousels and stories tends to work well. If you're a Facebook kind of person and your audience is there as well, because those are both important, right? It's still powerful. It's especially for like older demographics and for niche groups. So it's really great for building communities, and using groups on Facebook is a good way to build your following there. And then we have Twitter or X, which is a little better for thought leadership, nonfiction, connecting with influencers. And likewise, Blue Sky is sort of a newer platform, but also a little more left leaning, a little more progressive. And so that is another great place to also meet followers who are interested in thought leadership, nonfiction. And then LinkedIn, great for nonfiction, for business, self-help audiobooks. It's a really great place for that. And then YouTube, don't forget YouTube. So you can do short form, you can do long form content, videos, and they have, there's a whole like separated out section and opportunity for shorts. And those can be very, very effective. So those are some places that you might do some exploring. And of course, there are many other social media platforms, and you may find that a different one is where your audience is hanging out. So that's great. Just look for where your audience is as best you can tell and be there, right? Okay, so ideally you want to, especially if you're just getting started and, working on this, choose just 2 platforms, just to focus on those 2 and try to do those 2 well, because you're going to be much more effective if you do 2 well than if you do 5 marginally. All right. And here's the thing is, you don't have to create new content for every single post or platform. You can actually repurpose content across platforms, right? And that's a really good way to do it, because remember, on social media, they tend to move fairly quickly. Some platforms have sort of a faster pace than others. And so what that means is that people are, when they are looking at their feed, right? The feed is moving. It's moving. It's like you're on, standing by the highway with a sign, and cars are driving by. And the cars that have already driven by, maybe they saw it and maybe they didn't. But people tend not to take action very frequently on the first time that they see something. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But having that really eye-grabbing, the catchy, the hook is really important and valuable. So if you can work on developing that for yourself and your content, then you will find more success more quickly. Now, when you're putting content out there, what really actually effectively sells is stuff that doesn't feel like it's trying to sell you something. We are now at a place in our lives where the whole thing, we don't like to be sold to, we don't like that salesy feeling, right? Think about what you like. So then what do you post? Well, remember that there's that 80-20 rule that applies to so many things. Focus on like about 80% of what you put on social media is about providing some kind of value. It might be educational, it might be entertaining, whatever it is, that it's providing a good experience. You're delivering on material that will generate that feeling that we talked about earlier on. And then you can use the other 20% to, with your calls to action, to promote the work that you have, your audiobook. So here are some sort of high-performing content types for audiobook authors specifically. One is behind the scenes. People these days are often very into behind the scenes kinds of material and content posts. You could share, if you are your own narrator for your project, you could share clips of you in the recording booth. If you have a professional narrator, you could ask them to record little clips for you. And most often they will if your audiobook is still in process. You could show your manuscript cover in notes. You could introduce yourself, or you could introduce your narrator or the cast of your audiobook if you have more narrators in it. There's a lot that you could do that is just sort of behind the scenes, right? You can also use audiograms. So audiograms they're like little clips, short snippets of your audiobook, and it's helpful if you also include subtitles and the cover art. So subtitles will be helpful because that cover art is going to be used again and again, right, with different short snippets. So that's why those subtitles are so important. And these are audiograms. You can use them for Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. There's Blue Sky, so many places where you can use them. Okay. Now, another kind of content you can use. You can use quotes and you can use sound bites. So these are like pulling those little compelling one-liners from your book, right? Or you could pair it with a strong visual background, something that's really going to grab the attention of somebody so that they stop and they read that one-liner. And that is something that then is building that relationship. Again, you are showing up as the person delivering that feeling that you want them to feel, right? Another kind of content is like author storytelling. Like talk about why you wrote your book. What brought that on, right? What compelled you? Is this a book that really sort of delivered itself into your mind and you just like couldn't not write it down? That's kind of how mine, my most recent, my novel showed up for me. Or is this something that you really had something that you wanted to share with the world and, you saw a problem, you want to solve it, or you have expertise and people keep asking you the same questions. And so you wrote it in a book to address those questions that people have. There are so many reasons why we write books. Share those. It's interesting. People really find that fascinating. And talk about your journey as a creator. Again, it's really engaging kind of content for people. Another kind of content is community engagement. So this is where you're maybe posting a poll, right? Or a game or asking questions. Have fun with it. Community engagement can be really fun if you're asking those intriguing questions. Notice when you're on social media, what grabs your attention? What are the kinds of questions that you like to answer? And think about what you could ask on a poll that you post. So it might be a question, something like what's your favorite audiobook to listen to again, right? What audiobooks do you listen to over and over again? And why? You could ask questions that are related to your genre, like could be would you rather this or would you rather that, right? And so you can, but again, tie it into your content of your audiobook. And that is part of what's building this overall brand voice. Now, another thing to keep in mind, calls to action. And when I say that, I don't just mean like buy now, right? But there are other things you can invite people to do. And using your brand voice appropriately, you could ask people to buy in some posts. You could ask people to just listen to the free sample. You could ask them to add it to their wish list on their favorite audiobook platform. You could invite them to gift it to a friend or to share something about it. So there are lots of different ways that you can engage people in that way. And now I just want to take a short pause and then we're going to come back and we're going to think about or talk about what some integrated marketing, so beyond social media and what kinds of things we can do there. So let's take a short pause. Would you like to earn more from your audiobook sales? If you're an author with an audiobook, you may have noticed that royalties from Audible especially and other platforms as well are frankly kinda pathetically low. Disappointingly low, and unfairly low considering what it cost you in effort and resources to create it. How is it the retailers are the ones making all the money off your work and investment? As someone who started in the audiobook industry in 1981, I've found it frustrating that authors keep getting shortchanged. The good news is that Pro Audio Voices just launched Amplify Audiobooks, a direct sale audiobook platform for authors that puts you back in the driver's seat. Earn 65% of the gross sales price that you set. Compare that to the percentage of the percentage that retailers give. Run promotions on schedule whenever you want. Create coupon codes. Build community with your customers since you'll know who they are and how to contact them. Work with a caring, responsive, supportive team to help you succeed all along the way. Get help with marketing. Get paid weekly. We're helping audiobook authors who are frustrated by painfully low royalties and the barriers that prevent them from managing their own products and customers. Amplify Audiobooks is a direct sale platform that enables authors to earn much higher royalties and have way more control. We're disrupting the audiobook industry by putting authors first. Get started today at proaudiovoices.app or go to proaudiovoices.com and click on the Distribution Amplify link. Join the movement. Okay, so as we think about the different ways in which we can market, yes, social media is powerful and is valuable, but it also works best when you have other things going on in your marketing plan that is an integrated marketing system. So we're going to weave together multiple touch points. So one that we've talked about many times on this podcast is email marketing and how it is a very effective, continues to be a very effective way to market. And so you want to be building this list of readers who have opted in to hear from you because they keep hearing you, maybe because they keep hearing you on social media and they're attracted to that brand voice and want to be in this longer relationship with you. So email is still one of the highest converting tools for audiobook sales. And the best way to use email marketing is to use it consistently, just like social media marketing should be a consistent effort. Because that frequency, that reminder of who you are, that reminder, the building of the relationship, the building of your brand voice, all of that is keeping you top of mind and also helping get people to the place where they feel ready to get your audiobook. Another area of marketing is your website itself and landing pages that you may have developed. So you want to make sure on your website that you have clear navigation, calls to action on your website. If your audiobook is on Amplify Audiobooks, make sure that your button to buy the audiobook is leading to your book page on Amplify Audiobooks. Don't just send them off to Audible when you're not going to get as good results there. You'll get much lower royalties and you won't know who bought your audiobook. So use that button there to make sure that you're earning those higher royalties and that you're going to be building your community as a part of that process. So you've got those links. Make sure you add your, some reviews, put some audio samples on there, make it a fun place to visit, and then also make sure that you're updating content. This is where blogs are so valuable because you're adding new content. Why? Because if you don't give people a reason to come back to your website, they probably won't. And it's helpful for you and for them in terms of that building of your relationship for them to come back again and again. So add new content on a regular basis. That could be podcast episodes if you're a podcaster. It could be blog posts if you're a blogger. And there are other things you can also do, but those are sort of the most typical, easy, new post content kinds of things. All right. Podcast appearances are a great way to market. And that's where you contact hosts of podcasts and ask if you could be a guest on their podcast. make it worth it to them. I have episodes specifically about that and do presentations specifically about that as well. So exposes you to new audiences, which is one of the great things about podcast appearances. And frankly, they're fun. They're really fun. Some other things that you could be doing for your marketing, you could be sending out press releases, you can be doing media outreach. So these can be effective, especially for nonfiction or sort of high profile kinds of projects. Typically, projects that don't fall into those categories are gonna, may not get the kind of return that you're hoping for with that effort. But so it depends on your content, right? Other things, book clubs and communities. So you can partner with clubs of all kinds. They don't have to be book clubs. They can be any number of communities that align with your content and with your brand voice, right? And then, of course, there's advertising, which if you choose to have an advertising budget and work that, just make sure that you're managing that appropriately. But you could run ads on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Start small if you're going to start at all. And I'm not saying that you need to do advertising. I'm not, because there is so much that can be done without doing advertising. But if it's something that feels appropriate and you want to try, just start small and track how it's going, track your return on your investment before investing any further, right? But give it typically a few months of trying things out. You can tweak it in that time, but know that most often it's not going to happen immediately that you're going to see a big result. It typically, like with all marketing, it takes a little time. So overall, integrated marketing, it's really about repetition and it's about reinforcement. It's about building that brand voice and maintaining it, staying in touch, staying up there in front of your followers. So when a listener sees your TikTok video, for example, or hears you on a podcast or gets your next email newsletter, it feels to them like, wow, this author is everywhere. And that is a feeling that generates an excitement to buy. Okay. We're going to cover, I think, maybe one or two more things, and then we're going to wrap up for today. The next, I just want to talk about this, about crafting a social media campaign and kind of what that timeline might look like. So this is sort of getting down a little bit more into the weeds, and I don't want to overwhelm you with too much in the weeds. So we'll just do a little bit here. But if we're looking at, as an example, like a 90-day audiobook campaign that you might want to run. So you might start in the first 30 days as doing pre-launch if your audiobook is not yet live. If it is already live, you can still treat a pre-launch you can still have a pre-launch type of campaign as if you are relaunching. All right. In this, now some of these will be appropriate only for pre-launch and some might be appropriate for a relaunch. Okay. So you could do like teasers. You could do a cover reveal. Those are quite popular. You do coming soon posts. You're trying to build anticipation. You can work on building your email list, and that is really, really valuable always, right? You can start sharing behind the scenes kind of content. And then as you move into launch week, then you can do some like announcing, right, across the different platforms. You can share audiograms. You can mention any podcast episodes that you're going to be appearing on or media mentions that you get. You could do a live Q&A or a reading from your audiobook if you want. Okay, now, once you've launched your audiobook for the next 2 months, 60 days, you could drip out character highlights or author insights. You could share some early reviews and testimonials. And those can go a long way, actually, especially if someone writes a longer review and it's really good. You can take little pieces of it and share it in multiple posts, right? You don't have to put it all in one. You can offer bonuses, like if you want to encourage people to buy now, give them something special. That's something fun. But again, the main thing is about consistency. So you don't want to just promote during launch week. You want to build that momentum over time. And remember, it's not all about, remember that 80-20 rule, right? You want to spend about 80% of your effort providing value. Okay, I'm going to do, I think, a second segment on this, a second episode next week, but I think I'm going to wrap up here so this episode is not too long. And I want to thank you for listening today and being with me. It's always, I feel your presence, even though I'm recording before anyone could actually hear the episode, but I'm very aware of my audience, and I really, really, really appreciate you. I hope that if this has been valuable, that you will not only use these techniques, but that you'll share this episode with others. That's my call to action to you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that so that you know when that next episode lands. And meanwhile, happy promoting. If we can be of service to you as you're trying to figure out your marketing for your audiobook or your production, please do reach out to us at proaudiovoices.com. Again, thanks for being with me today. Thanks for joining us for Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. Please take a moment to subscribe at audiobookconnection.com. The podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Learn more at proaudiovoices.com. Again, thanks for being with us, and please join us next week.